I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and I've got to give them some credit. The CES devices are coming out a lot faster this time around versus CES 2011. We've already seen the Pantech Burst, and now I have the LG Spectrum in my hands right here. This is another 4G LTE device on Verizon, and it pretty closely resembles the LG Nitro HD on AT&T. Just to give you a recap on specs, this thing has a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor, a 4.5-inch True HD IPS display, an 8-megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording, and of course it's packing Android 2.3 with LG's custom interface. Now this comes in at $200, making it a pretty reasonable 4G LTE option on Verizon. Is this a device for you? We'll find out in the full review, but first, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with a bunch of phones just like this for use in our One Paw Bandit game. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working. They'll help you set up your email, your web, your call settings, and more. So when you walk out that door, your phone's on, you're good to go, and you're set up thanks to Best Buy Mobile's Walkout Working program. Let's take a look at this. LG Spectrum. Is this a 4G LTE phone to get, or should you hold off for some of the other CES 2012 devices? We'll find out starting right now. So the LG Spectrum in the house, the second CES device to come from this most recent trade show. So it's nice to see these CES devices coming so quickly as opposed to what they did in 2011. Though I will say these are mostly revisions of other devices. You know, the Spectrum, really just a minor change over the LG Nitro HD, which is on AT&T. A little bit of a body style change, obviously 4G LTE on Verizon instead of AT&T, but mostly the same device. Then you have, of course, the Pantech Burst, which was a new device. Then you have the Galaxy Note, which has been out internationally for a while. So you see what I mean. It's kind of, you know, a lot of these devices, the Droid Razr Max, for example, just minor revisions, but still nice to see options and nice to see stuff coming out so quickly. So this is available now for $199.99 on Verizon. And just to give you a rundown of the specs, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon processor here. It's got an 8-megapixel camera on the back with 1080p HD camcorder abilities. It also has a lot of my fingerprints on the back as well. 4.5-inch IPS True HD display, so it's a 720p HD display, and it's absolutely gorgeous, but more on that a little bit later, and I actually need to turn up the brightness while I'm thinking about it. Front-facing camera as well. It's running Android 2.3 with LG's custom user interface. So let's see brightness. Going to kick that up so we can see it on camera, and 4G LTE connectivity, of course. Now, interestingly enough, this comes in at $200, and if you've been following Verizon news recently, the Droid Razr's been marked down to $199.99. It doesn't have an SD card or micro SD card, but still $199.99 to go along with the Spectrum and to prepare for the Droid Razr Max launch. But still, you know, it's a pretty decent device. I like the way this one looks as opposed to the Nitro HD, and let me grab it actually for comparison, so you can take a look here and see the differences between the Nitro HD and the Spectrum. Exactly, or pretty much the same device, but a little bit different in terms of design. The AT&T one's a little bit more curved, whereas this one's a little bit more industrial and kind of boxy. Obviously, it's subjective. I like the Verizon design a little bit better personally, but it's up to you. Same three buttons down here at the bottom. You don't get the four capacitive buttons. You only get three on the LG one, though the menu button doubles up as search when you press and hold it long enough. So we're going to go ahead and go back home. So you can see, so search/menu over here, home, and then back over here. Though I will say the home button, let me bring it into the camera here and focus in so you can take a look. It looks like it's a physical button. It's actually not. There's just like a metal looking color behind it to kind of give it the illusion that it's a physical button, but it's not. So Android 2.3, like I said, with LG's custom user interface, you've got 7 home screens here. And of course you can do kind of the similar tips and tricks that we've seen on some of the other platforms, Sense UI, TouchWiz, and more. You can pinch to zoom in and out and access any of your 7 home screens pretty easily. And then you have LG's dock down here at the bottom, and out of the box you get phone, contacts, messaging, and apps down here. So you can see, and this is something that's particularly interesting to me on all the LG devices. You know, I'm not a big fan of LG's user interface, particularly on devices that are $200 and $300. I just don't think it's a fleshed out user interface, and it's not ready for $200. And you look at TouchWiz 4, you look at Sense 3.5, you look at Motorola's custom user interface, definitely fleshed out. They've gone through several different iterations, and they're kind of ready for prime time. I feel like LG's is not necessarily ready for the $200 or the $300 price tier. They really need to stick with either fix it or stick with stock Android if they're going to go into these higher end price tiers. I think it kind of frustrates people, and I think it gives a bad experience of the overall device. But you can see here the notification bar with some shortcuts. Got some toggles up here. You've got sound, of course, portrait to landscape toggle, Bluetooth, GPS, and then airplane mode. Then a big Wi-Fi off button, which I can click and easily access the Wi-Fi in the area, and then I can go to Verizon Wireless or Verizon Wireless's network ID here and see my notifications. So not a huge difference in terms of setup, but still you can kind of see, even with a dual-core 1.5 gigahertz processor, still a little bit laggy for my taste. And one thing that's a particular pet peeve of mine is you have to wait for it to stop scrolling before you click anything. So that kind of goes against the natural fluidity of any device when you really think about it, because you're going to come up here and you're going to want to hit something, and you're going to want to hit, let's say, Gmail, and I get up to the top, and it doesn't always recognize my gestures, especially if I'm in the middle of a scroll. So I go to click, and you see I just tapped it. It didn't do anything. So you'll find that happening often throughout the device. And it's fine if it happens every now and again, but you know, for me, I'm constantly having to double press things, and it takes some time. That's one of my demo phones, in case you were wondering. But it takes some time to access. You know, I have to press things 2 and 3 times. Pretty frustrating, and it makes for a poor experience, particularly for somebody that's coming into Android for the first time. So just a personal observation, it is something to make note of when you're in the Verizon store. Look at it versus, you know, ice cream sandwich on the Galaxy Nexus, or look at it versus Sense 3.5 on the HTC Resound, or Motorola's user interface on the Droid Razr, or by the time you probably look at this video, the Droid Razr Max. So it's a little bit different, and I don't care for it. But here's the menu while we're on the subject, and of course you can group stuff, and actually out of the box it comes grouped like this with communication, HD, Verizon Wireless, media, news and search, and then, you know, applications, downloads, and more. So you can customize these folders by pressing the menu button, and you can manage the applications, move those around in between folders, and then you can come down here and manage the categories as well. Add new categories if you so desire, remove categories, and we can come back up here and just so we can take a look. But you can see, you know, it's just not always responsive. And as beautiful as this display is, the real winner here on this device is this gorgeous 720p HD display, which the camera is obviously not going to do it justice. Excuse me, but beautiful display. But unfortunately, this lagginess on a high-end device is a little bit offsetting to me. So you can see here, communication, HD, all organized, and you can see out of the box you get some HD applications, Netflix, ESPN, Score Center, Smart Movie HD. Then you get a lot of Verizon stuff pre-installed. And according to this, the way they have it organized, 16 items pre-installed. Amazon Kindle, BitBop, Blockbuster, Hot Pursuit, Let's Golf 2, Mobile Hotspot, My Verizon Mobile, NFL Mobile, Rhapsody, TuneWiki, all the VCast stuff, apps, Media Manager, Tones, Video, Video Surf, and VZ Navigator. Now the downside, unless you root the device, which while you may be doing that or maybe thinking about doing that if you're watching this video, the average consumer, which, you know, 98% of the people that purchase this device aren't going to root it or aren't going to know how to root it. And so it's kind of frustrating and unfortunate that you can't uninstall the Verizon stuff. And then down here in Media, Smart Share, you get music, and you can see some of the applications have custom icons that kind of fit in with LG's user interface scheme. And then News and Search, Finance, Google Search News, and then Tools down here at the bottom, Settings, of course, Applications, and then Downloads. So for whatever reason, because the market updated, it's showing that as a download, but that's particularly interesting. So 7 home screens over here. Let's take a look at some of the widgets that come pre-installed in this. So we'll press and hold, and we'll access our widget screen. Now LG does this pretty interestingly. You know, instead of having widgets, shortcuts, folders, and wallpapers, and that typical Android look, they have them all organized down here at the bottom. So you can see widgets, shortcuts, folders, wallpapers. I can access and change my wallpaper. I can come over here and add widgets. And all I have to do when I'm done, you see it kind of sets up a grid layout. When I'm done, I just press the back button, and everything's changed. So press and hold again, and we'll go back in there. Excuse me. And we'll go and see digital clock, for example, and load that up. So you can just see some of the LG widgets that come pre-installed. You do get some custom stuff, calendar, you get Verizon's data usage, of course, finance, you get friends, in touch, market, messaging, music, and more. So we can go into messaging. We'll do this one. And we'll do the smaller one. Let's see if it'll fit on the home screen. Let's do it on this page. And so you can see no recent message. You can add that, but again, it still shows the graph kind of format, and then when you want to get out of that, you just press back or press home, and it'll take you right out, and then your new widgets are on the display. So you can see a bunch of the different options here that you get on this device. They do some decent customization stuff on LG's user interface, but again, in comparison to, and particularly if you're coming from Sense 3.5 or TouchWiz or Motorola's user interface, I think this thing's lacking quite a bit in comparison. It's a little bit behind on the user interface front. Let's take a look at messaging, and I'll show you the keyboards. Now this has a 4.5-inch display, which makes it pretty easy to type on. I don't know why I sent big apples to myself in a text message, but you know, like, that's big apples, man. That's what I meant. So you can see this keyboard that comes pre-installed is not something, or this is not a pre-installed keyboard, rather. This is something I installed from the Android market called Ice Cream Sandwich Keyboard Free. It's one of the best keyboards I've ever used, and it's available in the Android market for free, and there's a paid version as well. But out of the box, you get LG keyboard, you get swipe as well. So I'll show you the LG keyboard, and we'll do a test on it. So we'll say the Quick Brown Fox, with my terrible spelling, is happy that it is Wednesday. ... Woo! Woo! Quick Round Fox is happy that it's Wednesday with some spelling errors, but you can see quick transitions between portrait and landscape. So when this thing does perform well, it's very, very fast. A dual-core processor, you can see it in effect right there. Transitions are nice and zippy, but I do see, like I said a little bit earlier in the video, some lag, particularly when scrolling through the menu, and I think this is a result of LG's custom user interface, because I never saw this problem on the G2X, which was kind of their first hallmark device back into the US market, if you will, at least on the smartphone front. But then of course you have swipe as well, and then you have, which swipe is not my thing, but if it is yours, it's pre-installed. And then you have, like I said earlier, the Android ice cream sandwich keyboard that I've installed from the Android market. But between portrait and landscape, you can see even somebody with larger fingers should be fine with a 4.5-inch display. And let me see if I can get this focused in so you can really take a look. And the camera, of course, isn't going to do it justice, but I'll get it focused in. This does a beautiful display. And, even the Resound, which also has a 720p HD display, they do a really good job on this device of making it look good. And it's a nice selling feature of the device. And hey, for $200, you really can't beat that. And to get an IPS HD display for $200, it's nice to see that they're lowering that tier a little bit. Let's take a look at browser as well. We'll load up phonedog.com, and we'll go in here, phonedog.com, and you can see for whatever reason the 4G just cut out on me. Let's see, phonedog, let's see if it'll load, and we'll take a look at it. Now LG's interface here a little bit different than some of the others we've researched lately, and you can see I can add a new window just by going up there, and I can see my open windows and easily scroll back and forth between those. So there's PhoneDog, it's fully loaded, and you can see for the most part, well, I was going to say pinch to zoom is responsive, but it was a little laggy right there. It seems fine now. Pinch to zoom, relatively responsive, although you can kind of see the page stuttering a little bit. Let's see if we can get this fixed. There we go. Well, no, it's still kind of stuttering. Pinch to zoom, relatively responsive. There's some stutter there at the beginning. It was loading up, but still, it's not too terribly bad. I've definitely seen better on some of their higher-end 4G LTE devices, but you can see somewhat responsive for the most part once everything's loaded. And again, portrait to landscape transitions reasonably fast, though again, there's no transition effect like you get in Motorola's custom user interface, where it kind of makes that easy on the eyes transition as opposed to that blocky transition you're seeing right now on the LG Spectrum. But still, decent performance, the ability to add windows, and then of course you got the typical browser settings in here, and then you can add a window easily by clicking on that as well. So decent browser performance, though there was some lag from time to time. This 4.5-inch display is kind of a nice sweet spot for somebody that wants to watch a lot of videos, browse the web quite a bit, and do a lot of pinch to zoom. It's a really nice display.